Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, Kim can update you on the latest in the trial with Michael Cohen, as I told you, testifying. Michael Cohen can both show receipts and speak to the strategies associated with paying hush money to Stormy Daniels and then hiding those payments in shell companies, a shell company, essentially, that was set up specifically to conceal those funds.
Latest on that is, according to CNN, Michael Cohen testified he used a home equity loan to make a payment so his wife wouldn't find out.
And it was Michael Cohen who was the dutiful foot soldier for Trump, who did put his own money on the line and then reimbursed was Michael Cohen by Trump in this furtive, kind of circuitous way. And that's how you end up with the shell company, with the home loan, et cetera. But in other Trump news, he's going to like this. Trump leads in 5 key states. Young and non-white voters express discontent with Joe Biden. A new set of Times Siena polls, including one with the Philadelphia Inquirer, reveal an erosion of support for the president among young and non-white voters upset about the economy and Gaza. We have it on the screen for you there. I don't know if you can discern, but these are the swing states. So Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. And if you look at Wisconsin, I mean, it's close. If the election were held today, who would you vote for if the candidates were Joe Biden and Donald Trump? In Wisconsin, 45% say Trump, 47% say Biden. In Pennsylvania, 44% say Biden, 47% say Trump. So Trump beats Biden in Pennsylvania. Trump beats Biden in Arizona, 49-42. That's beyond the margin of error. Trump beats Biden in Michigan, 49% to 42%. Again, that's beyond the margin of error. Trump beats Biden in Georgia, 49% to 39%. And finally, in Nevada, Trump beats Biden, 50% to 38%.
Wow.
These are mostly unchanged since the last series of Times Siena polls in the battleground states in November. And, since then, you can tell me, well, it's the economy, but the market is up 25%, the stock market. I understand that these are, well, the young people are not in the market, and that doesn't mean that inflation is affecting. Okay, but Donald Trump's taking credit. He took credit on the stump this weekend in New Jersey for the fact that the stock market was up. Now, you may say, how is that possible? How can Donald Trump, well, this is a classic Trump move. He takes credit for those things that are working out, and he farms out blame to Democrats and Joe Biden if things aren't working out. So, for example, the border, well, that's more complex, and I'll get to that in a second, but he'll tag the Democrats for any problems with the border. And in this case, he blames Joe Biden for inflation, but he takes credit, Trump does. And again, I heard him with his own voice saying this. You know what happened with the market and why it's up so much? Because the markets are anticipating that I, Donald Trump, am going to win the election. And that's why the market is up. Anyway, Trump's criminal trial in Manhattan seems to have had no effect on voters, at least in the polling. The Biden campaign has dumped tens of millions of dollars in ads across battleground states, and that doesn't seem to have had any effect.
I have a question about the Israel-Hamas issue, because you mentioned that younger voters that's an issue for them, and that's why they're turning away from President Biden. But it seems to me that Trump isn't going to not side with Israel on this. It seems like he goes where the money is. So I don't know what voters expect is going to change by having that be one of their key issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is a really good point that Kim is making, and it's something we've touched on before, but I think it's worth revisiting just quickly. And I would say this just in 30 seconds or less. Yeah. It is the myopia of those protesting that would say, I'll vote for Trump before Biden on Middle East issues. I'm so angry at Biden about the Middle East and about support for Israel that I'm going to vote for Trump. Now, because Trump is much more militant on supporting Israel, moved the embassy to Jerusalem, the American embassy to Jerusalem. That's something that no president had wanted to do. And the idea somehow that you would run to your new daddy, he's worse than your old daddy on the Middle East. Now, to be fair, many may say, well, I'm not going to vote for either one of these guys. You know, I'm not going to vote for either on the Middle East as a protest vote. That will hurt Biden, though, because many of those people who were likely leaning Democrat, they stay out. Now, I'll also say, though, because this is sort of a zero-sum game, when you don't vote, you say, well, as a protest, I'm not going to vote, or I'm voting for a third party, you're really, in these swing states, making a vote for Trump.
Yeah.
So that's what, and I know that was longer than 30 seconds, but the Middle East part was just 30 seconds. the circling back around to who it really helps, it helps Trump.
Yeah.
So, and then circling back around to Kim's point, and he will make the Biden administration, you know, look like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood on the Middle East.
Right.
So if if that's your plan, it's a bad plan. And I think it's just myopic. I think it's just you're blinded by passion and emotion. You're going, you know, I hate this administration and I'm not going to vote for them. And you go off and you can see all these YouTubers and they're F-bombing and they're angry and genocide and this. I get it. Be considered in how you vote and how you influence policy. How support for the candidates differ between registered and likely voters. I don't know if there's much of a story here. You know, the difference is 1% to 2% all the way on down the way. Mm-hmm. But there is essentially a dissatisfaction with the state of the country and serious doubts about Biden's ability to deliver major improvements to American life. This, despite the fact that he passed this watershed bill that was bipartisan, an infrastructure package that included all of these different things, many of which are being taken credit for by Republicans who opposed the bill. And yet nearly 70% of voters say the country's political and economic systems need major changes or even to be torn down entirely. I mean, that's a strike against institutions, political and economic systems. Here it is. Most Americans think the system needs to change. This is giant because what that enables is a revolutionary kind of strategy to attack these major changes. So, again, for those listening, I'll just read it for you. Which comes closest to your view about the political and economic system in America, even if none are exactly right? The system needs to be torn down entirely, 14%. Major changes, 55%. Minor changes, 27%. No changes, 2%. And because this is the important part, they think that Donald Trump would bring more change. If this candidate won the election, do you think nothing would change? There would be minor changes to how things work? There would be major changes to how things work? Or he would tear down the system completely? Tear down the system completely for Biden, 13% if you were reelected. 11% say major changes from Biden. Minor changes from Biden, 39%. Nothing would change, 32%. Trump, tear down the system entirely. 25% of the people say that, compared to 13% with Biden, I'll remind you.
What does tear down the system mean? Do away with the Constitution and turn it into a dictatorship? What are they talking about?
Major changes, Dud, might include a lot of things. Yeah.
Yikes.
I mean, he's major changes. If he won, Trump, 45%. That's compared to 11% for Biden. So, again, this isn't, well, I was going to say this really isn't wrong. I mean, it's true that Biden is an institutionalist, right? The institutions of government he believes in. Trump is let's tear the whole thing down. I'm your guy. My kids are going to run, the Department of Commerce, and my other kid's going to run the COVID relief. He's like, don't worry about all this government stuff. I got the whole thing handled. These 6 guys, Steve Bannon's going to handle it. It's my cronies are going to take care of everything.
A bunch of crooks are going to take care of everything.
And nothing would change. 23% say that. So the last thing I'll say on the change part, but they are split on whether that change would be good or bad. Here's the last question I'll just share with you, and then you can read the poll for yourself, and we'll have a link to it in case you want to read about it more below this video. But they are split on whether that change would be good or bad. Do you think the changes that this candidate would make would be good for the country or bad for the country, or neither good nor bad? Biden, somewhat or very good. Biden got 24% on the changes. Trump gets 43% on somewhat or very good. Neither. 15% for Biden, 12% for Trump. Somewhat or very bad. 23% for Biden, 35% for Trump. So people do perceive that changes from Trump would be somewhat or very bad for the country by 12% more in poll responders than with Biden, 23% to 35% with Trump. Nothing would change, 32% for Biden and only 4% for Trump. In other words, everybody knows that, things are changing if Papa Trump gets back. So that, I think, is a snapshot. And again, this is 5 battleground states, so it's very relevant. And I would also say that some of the way you answer questions to these sorts of polls is not so indicative of people wanting to tear the whole place down. And I'm not reading all of these. If there's anything I need to respond to, but you can see the comments while I'm just making these points. What I was going to say is that, if you ask me, and I think you ask a lot of people who, for example, want to get rid of the Electoral College, that's a major change that you want, right? So if you ask me, do you think this country needs a major change in a system or even systems, I would say yes. So I would respond yes also. But I don't want to see the kind of changes that Donald Trump's going to make. And Donald Trump's not going to change the Electoral College. I mean, the Electoral College to me is sort of one of the original sins of the way the election process for president goes down in this country. It was a bone thrown to slave-holding states. That's really where it came from. But even if you take the slave-holding out, it was the whole, 3/5 compromise thing. If you take that all out, it's just absurd that you have this tyranny of the minority. How can you win by 3, 6, 7 million votes? Trump may lose the popular vote by 10 million votes and still win the presidency. So if you ask me, that's a major change that has to happen with a government institution. But again, I'm not looking for Trump to make it. I'm just saying it has to change. But Trump really doing well with those who believe that political and economic systems ought to be torn down. But what the specifics are on that varies, right? It'll vary with everybody, and that's where the nuance and specifics are lost. But you see where people don't vote on nuance. They vote on anger, and that's what Trump has tapped into. They vote on feeling left out of whatever prosperity there is. I see these polls in a stark way. But that said, you still have the Supreme Court. You still have the federal judiciary. You still have a kind of lawlessness. How might that ultimately inform decisions made in the polling place? Over 4,000 people, registered voters in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin were polled. And they were polled using telephone, live interviews in both English and Spanish. Nearly 95% of the respondents were contacted on a cell phone. by this poll. So it's not one of the things like, well, yeah, I mean, people who have landlines, I mean, you know, how. And you can see the exact questions that were asked and the order in which they were asked if you want to click through on the piece that I will post under this video. So that's good news for Papa Trump, if he's your man. Bad news for Joe Biden and for a sense of normalcy that people feel, it would seem, based on polling, they didn't get from Joe Biden. They're not getting the sense of normalcy that they thought they'd get. I mean, again, the chaotic, COVID-plagued last days of the Trump administration, yeah, I suppose people have forgotten that in everything else that has happened between then and now. I did want to give you, this is pretty big news, and I did want to give this to you. It's an IRS audit of Trump that could cost former President Trump more than $100 million.
What?
The IRS is saying that they've done this long-running investigation, and they've concluded that Trump effectively claimed the same massive write-off twice on his failed Chicago tower. The 92-story skyscraper along the Chicago River is the tallest, and at least for now, the last major construction project by Trump. Through a combination of cost overruns and the bad luck of opening in the teeth of the Great Recession, it was also a vast money loser, was this big skyscraper. But when Trump sought to reap tax benefits from his losses, the IRS is saying that he went too far. So in effect, they're saying he wrote off the same losses from that building twice. The first write-off came on his tax return in 2008, and he claimed his investment in the condo hotel tower made the tax code definition of worthless because his debt on the project meant he would never see a profit. That move gave Trump reporting losses as high as $651 million for the year. And there's no indication that the IRS even challenged that. They kind of gave it to him. But the issues around Trump are that he took it again. He took more losses. And in so doing, the IRS is recalculating everything, and they're seeking a revision and a new tax bill that is something he has to pay of $100 million plus interest and penalties.
Ouch.
That is a lot of money. He will, of course, contest this. This story out of ProPublica, bravo for ProPublica. I contribute to them. And this deal with the IRS involves tax accounting, and it involves aggressive, and the IRS is saying unlawful taking of losses. Now, I'm going to back burner anything more on this until David K. Johnston joins us tomorrow. He has written literally chapter and verse on Trump, the tax code, and the IRS. And so I'll leave it to David, the Pulitzer Prize winner, tomorrow, and we'll talk to him about that. I want to leave this chunk of Trump with a little bit from his stump speech.
For the world, they're emptying out their jails into the United States. They're emptying out their mental institutions into the United States, our beautiful country. And now the prison populations all over the world are down. They don't want to report that. The mental institution population is down because they're taking people from insane asylums and from mental institutions. You know what the difference is, right? An insane asylum is a mental institution on steroids. Silence of the Lambs. Has anyone ever seen the Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He's a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner. Remember the last scene? Excuse me, I'm about to have a friend for dinner. As this poor doctor walked by. I'm about to have a friend for dinner, but Hannibal Lecter. Congratulations, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. We have people that are being released into our country that we don't want in our country.
Okay, thank you, Tony. That's good. I don't know if you could hear that, but
It was
I
just
love
nonsensical.
I love that he calls the late, great Hannibal Lecter, like he was a real guy. He was a character. He was also a serial killing cannibal. I don't see how he's great. So the late, great, just like, I don't know, he liked it because it rhymed or something.
Well, what does it have to do with immigration?
Well, he's saying that the immigrants were coming over. He's leaning back into his original thoughts about, they come here with, they're emptying out their prisons and their insane asylums, and they're being sent here. That's his, so he's talking about Hannibal Lecter.
They're sending us their Hannibal Lecters? Is that what they're saying?
He's riffing. He did 90 minutes. I watched it. It's crazy.
Weird.
But some of the audios, you guys can check it out online. He started in the first 2 minutes. He said, it's good to be here in New Jersey, but boy, Biden has ruined this state with the highest sales tax and property taxes in the country. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Biden doesn't have anything to do with the sales tax in New Jersey, nor does Biden have anything to do with the property tax in New Jersey.
Aren't those local issues?
Both those things are state issues. They're mandates from the state. And both those states, even if they were related to the feds, are predating Joe Biden, right? So it's sort of like, but he will say anything, and the crowd, roars in this super enthusiastic way. I mean, the one thing Donald Trump has convinced us is, man, you can say whatever you want, and people just cheer, and no one fact checks, and the fact checks, and the media loves the horse race so much. And to be fair to the media, it's a fire hose of lies. It's pretty hard to cover him. So the only other thing I'll give you, even though it's Chunk of Trump, is I did get this video. This is a private video sent to me, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. In Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, which is where we used to vacation sometimes. It's a little town. It's where Biden vacations. Remember, he's the Delaware kid. And it's not super far from Wildwood, New Jersey, but I don't know. It's a long car ride. Here is Joe Biden leaving Rehoboth. And this is in a little video that was sent to me, and
It's the motorcade.
Yeah. All of these trucks and Suburbans, they're big black Suburbans, or whatever they are, Tahoes or whatever. Here's a white van. Somehow that's carrying the sunscreen, everybody, there at the beach.
Is that what that's happening? That they have the towels in the coolers?
It's endless, that crew. And then they're, wait for me. I'm the...
That's quite an entourage.
Isn't it? It's not over. It's like one of those those train cars that they go on for forever.
Wow.
Yeah. That is Chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another Chunk of Trump.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.